Have you ever felt like you're living on autopilot, disconnected and struggling to set healthy boundaries? Today, I sit down with Michelle Chalfant, holistic life coach, therapist, and host of the popular Adult Chair podcast. Michelle brings her expertise in emotional healing and personal growth to our conversation. She shares her innovative adult chair model along with the 5 pillars of being a healthy adult. You'll learn practical tools for feeling your emotions, setting boundaries, and taking responsibility for your life. Stay until the end to discover a simple yet powerful exercise for tuning into your body and processing emotions effectively. You're listening to the Born to Heal podcast, and I'm your host, Dr. Katie Deming. After 2 decades of practicing as an oncologist and caring for thousands of patients, I've seen firsthand how our healthcare system places obstacles in your path to true healing. My guests and I will bridge the worlds of Western medicine and alternative healing to help you achieve optimal health. Expect to uncover new insights, share a few laughs, and maybe even shed some tears along the way. But most of all, we'll learn how to heal from within together. So let's dive into today's episode. Hello, everyone. I am very excited today to be speaking with Michelle Chalfant, a licensed therapist, holistic life coach, and the host of the very popular Adult Chair podcast that I think I saw something that said you just hit 5 million downloads or something like that. Is that correct?
10 million.
Oh my God, 10 million. Oh my goodness.
It's surreal. I got to tell you, like to even say that number out loud because it's a big number.
It is a big number. Congratulations. Well, welcome,
you.
Michelle. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much. And I'm so happy to have had you on my show and to be part of that 10 million. So thank you.
I love it. I love it. Funny. So Milo, my cat, is with us today. And for whatever reason, he's very talkative. So we may hear him. But what I would love to start out with is having you tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired the framework of the Adult Chair.
Yeah, for sure. So I like you said, I've been a therapist and also a coach, a life coach for maybe 20 some years. And I stopped seeing clients it was right around COVID. I just stopped because the podcast was getting bigger. And I felt this call to really put the messaging in a different way out into the world versus instead of seeing clients one-on-one, I developed online courses and a membership and a coaching certification program called the Adult Chair. So all the things. So the Adult Chair is a model that I cobbled together based on, honestly, a lot of different teachers, but also a lot of my own intuition as well as feedback from clients that I had over all these years. So it's a model that's based on 3 distinct phases of our lives. We start with the child phase. So that's 0 to 6. So when we're in the child phase, we learn all about how to feel our emotions. We learn about how to have fun. We learn about vulnerability and intimacy and all these beautiful things, play, all the fun things. And then we move at around the age of 6 into what we call the adolescent chair. And from the age of about 6 to 25, we live here. And that's pre-adolescence, adolescence, post-adolescence. In a nutshell, we are developing our ego, the ego structure. So we learn how to not live in the moment. Now we're living in the past and the future. This is where we are really developing a sense of self. And I say that meaning the small sense of self, small s, not the big S. But it's a real separate identity from who we truly are. But it's what we learn in order to survive in the world. So we learn, again, typically we learn who to be in order for our parents to love and accept us. How do I need to change myself in order for my friends to love and accept me? So we start kind of putting these masks on over who we truly are to become who others want us to be. So this is where you're going to start seeing also, for example, the fraud part of us that pops up. We see the inner critic, we see the judger, and it's not bad. We really need an ego in order to survive here on the planet. But if we don't have it balanced out, it just becomes, we just live from our false self. And then around the age of 25, if we had healthy parents and modeling in our lives, which again, most of us unfortunately don't, we have adolescents in adult suits that raise us. So around the age of 25, we then slide into what we call our adult chair. This is where we live in the present moment. We're conscious. We live with fact and truth versus story and assumption. We live with boundaries. We live with empathy. We know how to have self-compassion, all of these beautiful things. So that's the model. And what's beautiful about it is it teaches us who we are today and how we got here. How did I develop into the human that I am today, no matter what your age is? And then it's a framework that teaches you how to become a healthy adult. How do I do that? And the way that we do that, we plug in what I call the 5 pillars of what a healthy adult is all about. So anyone can learn how to be a healthy adult, regardless of your background, regardless of what's going on in your life. We just have to have that framework. So that's the adult chair in a big or a little tiny nutshell, I should say.
No, that's super helpful, I think. And I love the way that you have defined that as a way for people to kind of wrap their heads around all of these parts of us, right? And
yes.
that you simplify it in a way that resonates and it's practical. And that was one of the things that as I was preparing for this, I was looking at the feedback from your podcast. And a lot of what people say is that Michelle's so practical and she shares real examples that help me understand, how this applies to whatever I'm going through in my life. So I love the simplicity of that. And I'm wondering, do you want to talk about the 5 pillars? I think that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
So, and this again, I pulled this together after seeing clients for about 21 or 22 years. And what I realized was I kept saying the same. This is even before I had developed the adult chair. I kept saying the same thing to people over and over again. So what I said for 20 some years was the same thing, which is number 1, we've got to take responsibility for our lives. So regardless of what's going on in your life, it's not about self-blame or falling into victim or blaming anyone else. It's just, where am I? Okay, this is where I am. Let me take responsibility for where I am today. Once we do that, it's actually really empowering to do that. Another thing that then we do is we have self-compassion. So many of us are living from a place of, again, we're beating up on ourselves. We're blaming. We're stuck in a negative cycle of whether it's around, some of us have anxiety or depression or so many different things that we all suffer with as humans. Humans are going to suffer no matter what. The question is how do you get yourself out of it? Self-compassion is a beautiful tool that we all can learn. And when we learn how to apply that, boy, our lives can change. I mean, self-compassion builds self-worth, self-esteem. It can lift us out of depression after we use it for a time period. So it's a beautiful thing that we all need to learn how to practice, because if not, that small self, the ego, just kind of kicks in with the inner critic. We all think that we're frauds, that kind of thing. We then have to learn how to feel our emotions. This is something that, oh my God, if I had $1 for every client, when I said to them, hey, how does that make you feel in your body? They would look at me like, what do you mean? And feeling our emotions is something we absolutely know how to do when we're children, and we just do it. We come in ready to feel. We do feel. No one has to teach us. We're feeling little beings. I don't care what sex you are a feeling being. And we learn not to feel. We learn to shut it down. We learn from our caregivers, whoever raised us, what to do with our emotions. So unless you had someone that raised you that said, oh, my darling, what are you feeling? Tell me more. And they're able to sit with us and be with us in that space of our sadness, our overwhelm, our anger, or whatever it is. We don't have people like that while we're growing up, we have to do something with these emotions. So we learn to shove them down, numb them out. A lot of parents, a lot of clients I work with, they had parents that would give them dessert. Have some candy, you'll be fine. Just have this cake, have these cookies, or let's go over here. And there's a distraction. And again, I have no blame or judgment toward anybody. I was a parent. I did not get it perfect. But what I've learned over the years is living as a really healthy human requires us to be able to feel our emotions. Because if we don't feel those emotions, we can get sick. We absolutely can get sick if we don't feel our emotions, because emotions are based in energy. And energy, we are energetic beings. So the energy needs to be able to flow and metabolize through us. So if you're not feeling your emotions, there's an energy that's getting stuck, or a lot of it that gets stuck. And think about a river that gets dammed up. it's not health. It's not good. It's going to overflow. There's bad things that are going to happen. So anyway, so feeling your emotions is the next one. After that is number 4 is triggers. What the heck do we do with triggers? I personally, and I've said this for probably my entire career, I love triggers. I also love parts work. I do parts work a little differently than Dick Schwartz does with IFS. I do spiritual parts work. So I'm working energetically and spiritually with our parts. It's a really beautiful process, but triggers fall right in line with parts work, because when we are triggered, what people forget, and I've done many podcasts on triggers, what people don't know, I should say, it's not that they forgot, they don't know this. Triggers are a phenomenal way for us to discover unknown, and I'm being redundant on purpose, they're unknown, unconscious beliefs that we have about ourselves. So when we're triggered, there's a belief that about ourselves, like I hate myself, I don't matter, I'm not good enough, I'm a loser, whatever we are saying, there is a belief that's rising up within ourselves about us that's delivered to us on a silver platter. And if we're willing to take a look at that and really work with that belief, then we can actually transform that inner belief that we have about ourselves. But what typically happens is that people instead want to shut that person down that made, quote unquote, here's my air quotes, made them feel that way. Nobody can make you feel anything unless you have it inside of yourself. You've got it inside of yourself if you're feeling it. Have you ever been with a group of friends where, you could be standing with 5 friends and you're the only one that is triggered and everyone else is like, what are you so upset about? What's the big deal? It's because it's your belief. That belief within you is the one that's rising up. So when we learn to work with triggers, this can stand alone as something that I would say has transformed my entire life, just learning how to work with triggers. So I've got trigger scripts. I have so many things that I do with triggers, but triggers, game changer for anybody. And the last thing that humans need to do and get better at, and I think it's an ongoing, lifelong learning, is learning how to work with setting boundaries. We've got to learn, and we're not great at it. My parents weren't great at it. People think that, and I can't, if I again had $1 for every person that said to me when I said, I think it might be appropriate for you to set a boundary with so-and-so, their response to me would be, but I'm not confrontational, so I'm not going to do that. Well, let's get something clear about boundaries. Boundaries do not have to be confrontational. Boundaries do not have to be raged or screamed out. That's really an explosive, unhealthy boundary. But a boundary simply teaches other people how we want to be treated. And we are protecting our inner beliefs, our values, and our morals and our ideas when we're setting a boundary. And there's, I could do the whole day experience just on talking about boundaries. But anyway, I'll stop there. So that is the 5th pillar that is part of course, learning how to grow and live in what I call your adult chair, which is the healthiest version of self. There you go.
So that's amazing. And actually, I feel like, Michelle, you and I just practice the same thing. We're just doing it in different spaces, because all of the things that you're saying are absolutely the things that I am teaching and doing with my clients. And a couple of things that so that quote, boundaries do not have to be confrontational. I love that. And I was late getting on this call for this interview with Michelle because I was with a client who'd just been diagnosed with. Hey, it's Dr. Katie. You may have noticed that I talk a lot about water on this podcast. After a year of research, I've learned that optimal water needs 3 key elements: filtration, mineralization, and structure, just like natural spring water. Doing all these steps to my own drinking water took me several hours a week. That's why I'm so impressed with Spring Aqua. Their system incorporates all 3 elements in one system that is basically modeling its technology after the renowned healing waters of the spring at Lourdes, France. I personally use their Wet 7 model, which offers alkalinized hydrogen water and saves me hours each week. Spring Aqua has dramatically improved hydration for both me and my family, and I believe it could do the same for you. I recently had the owner, Kenny Lou, on the show, and his integrity really shines through in this product. If you're interested in experiencing truly hydrating water that mimics nature's process, please visit the link in the episode description. colon cancer. And there are clearly some boundaries that need to be set up. And I could feel that, like, she didn't want to be confrontational. She didn't want to. And I love that you say that, like, it doesn't have to be confrontational. It's not about that. You said it's about teaching people how we want to be treated, which that's it. And I think if people can see boundaries in that way, it's like, oh, okay. But then it's a skill, right? So you're teaching people how to do that in a skillful way, which I think we haven't been taught. Again, it comes back to, I love that you said that, the people who raised us are like, adolescents in adult suits. I think that's what you said, but it's like, it's so true, right? And the thing is that if we weren't taught how to do that, then we don't have the tools to do it. And I love that you're teaching that. And I also love what you said about triggers. And so my mentor always says to me is like, well, if you squeeze a lemon, what are you going to get? You're going to get lemon juice. If you squeeze an orange, what are you going to get? You're going to get an orange. And so I see triggers also as spiritual work, that it's like, oh, if something triggers me, it just shows me what's inside. And you're describing it as those beliefs. Like, these are our beliefs rising up, and what a gift that it's coming out. And I know it doesn't feel that way. And I know that it often feels like, no, it's them. It's like they're triggering me, but It's like, we can't be triggered by someone if there's not something inside of us that is coming out with that.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, it's so beautiful. And then the last thing that I'll say is that I love that the first pillar is responsibility. And this is a quote that my partner said to me the other day. And he went through a divorce, and then his wife, he was a professional cyclist, and he lived a very selfish lifestyle, because you have to do that to, perform at the highest level. And he realized, though, when she asked him for a divorce, that he's like, I just need to like get myself right so that I can figure out who I am and how I'm operating. And then so that I can also become a better partner when I am with someone else. And so he was in therapy for 3 years and intentionally by himself during that whole time. And he said something to me really beautiful that ties into your first pillar, which he said, it's like, I needed to take responsibility for my past and be intentional about my future. And I'm like, oh, thank God I got to meet you after 3 years of therapy. I'm like, that's amazing. But it's like, it is so true, right? We can't actually be intentional about our future until we've taken responsibility for, who we are and where we're at right now, right? We can't figure out where we're going if we don't take responsibility for where we are in this moment.
You nailed it. That's it. You cannot go forward until you take responsibility for what's going on right now in this moment. And what people do, and I love this, what an enlightened man, just going to say, lucky you. You created well, honey. Way to attract the right guy in. Yeah, because I totally forgot what I was just saying. I mean, what he said to you is so beautiful that he's going to pause, reflect, and then make a plan for the future. Like, beautifully done. And that's what we all need to learn how to do, is just slow down a little bit, slow down, look at where you are. I'm thinking about, I had a lot of, not a lot, but handfuls, let's say, of clients over the years. I lived in Nashville, Tennessee for 13 years. And that's where I pretty much had, that's where my full-time practice was. And, I remember many people would come in and go, okay, I can only say this to you, Michelle. I'm like, what's going on now? I mean, people would tell me everything, and they'd say, I'm drinking too much. Something's not right. I'm aware of the fact that I'm drinking too much. I don't want to be drinking this much. Something's not right. Can you help me? I'm like, great job taking responsibility. You can't make a change until you stop, look inward and say, wow, something's not right. I remember one of my clients said, I noticed that when I came home, I'm starting to come home from work every day. And I used to make dinner and have like 1 or 2 glasses of wine. Now I'm having a bottle. And sometimes I'm even opening up a second bottle. And she said to me, that's not okay. And I said, way to go. This is not about judging. Like, I was so proud of her. I said, way to go. But she was one of many people that said similar things, like, way to go. Now we can come up with a plan because you're owning it. Yeah. We can leave the judgment, blame. Why am I doing this? Does not matter. Doesn't matter. You got to step into the now state, which is present moment awareness state, and say, wow, this is where I am today. This doesn't feel right. I got to make a shift. What does that look like? So,
yeah, absolutely. Well, and I have a question for you as I'm thinking about, obviously, my podcast is about physical healing, and and people are listening here is like emotions, like we talk about emotions. I want to say, like, every other week I have someone on talking about emotions. So this is very important to the work that we're doing in healing. But I'm wondering how you see this concept of the different chairs and recognizing, these different chairs that we all are in at different points, how that understanding can contribute to physical healing in the body.
Yeah. Something that I would say is if again, I know that your population, there are some people that are not well, that are listening to this show. And I worked with people that were stage 4 cancer. That wasn't the bulk of my clientele, but I absolutely did. In fact, I did a whole podcast with a woman named Connie on the Adult Chair podcast. We walked through her stage 4 cancer together, her breast cancer. It was a beautiful journey. But what I would say is the way that we want to navigate illness, it doesn't matter what kind of illness it is to learn how to do it from a place of self-compassion, number one, and really reflecting on what we need. And what I noticed over the years, because I dabbled in energy. I mean, I've done a lot of things over all these years. But what I would notice is when we're putting, for example, other people first, right? And I'm putting myself last on the list. I worked with a lot of codependents over the years that would have oftentimes autoimmune diseases. So we worked with that. And what I found was it was interesting. I should have done studies on this, but I'm putting myself last. I don't even know what I want. I don't even know what I need. I don't know how to love myself. So what I noticed that happened is we have these issues with learning how to put ourselves first, learning how to love ourselves, learning how to feel the pain. And when we don't do that well and we push that aside or just ignore it, it can develop into sometimes physical ailments within the body. No doubt about it is what I saw. So the way that I would work with people is to teach them the very basics of this is how you feel your emotions. And the reason we want to feel our emotions, to me, the emotions lead to everything. They lead to setting boundaries. They lead to self-worth. If I don't know what I'm feeling, how am I going to move forward? It's like we've got to work with feeling emotions. Feeling emotions for me, what I saw over all these years was it led to depression. When I'm not feeling my emotions, I'm tapping them down, depression, sadness. If I'm pushing down hard on my emotions that are trying hard to rise up, that's anxiety. So we have to learn how to let the energy flow through the body and learn how to, and this is not airy fairy woo woo when I say we got to learn how to love ourselves. At our core, we are here as unconditionally loving beings. We all are, but we get covered up when we forget that. So we've got to remember how to do that, and feeling your emotions and allowing them to flow through us like a stream is a beautiful way to do that. But starting to get in touch with ourselves. And I was talking about Connie. One of the things that I remember she came in and talked to me about, she said, everyone is telling me to go to the cancer support group. I said, well, how does that make you feel? And this is why we got to learn how to feel our emotions and tap back into the body. I said, how does that make you feel? She said, horrible, but everybody wants me to go. And I said, sounds like it's time for a boundary. Because the more we feel and get into our heart space, the more we're connecting into our soul, into our God, into source, whatever the heck you call it is fine. But we're tapping into something bigger. And my belief is that something bigger can help you to navigate anything in life, including an illness. So it wants to help to heal you. It wants to walk you out of your pain. It wants to walk you out of your illness. You got to tap into that. And when we tap into our emotions and we open up the heart and we get in there, God, our whole lives can change. So that's a big part of it.
Yeah. Well, and this is a big piece. And I really hope that we will see more data and literature upon this, or about this. But I see it in my practice, and now I see it more now that I'm able to practice in this way where I can really talk to people and understand, like, what are the dynamics that are going on in their life. This is a big one. People putting others first. It is, and maybe it's like, I don't know, maybe it's just a human thing at this point, but it's so many people that I see one of the biggest things that has happened is they've lost themselves in giving to everyone else. And I see a lot of women with breast cancer and a lot of women with gynecologic cancers. But even with other things, like this is a common theme of us putting everyone else first and not taking care of themselves. And what you just said, that they don't know they don't know what they need. They don't know how to love themselves. They don't know what they're feeling in their body because they've learned how to or disconnect from that so that they can serve, everyone else around them. And it often is like the most challenging work just for them to even figure out how they feel. And I love that example of the support group. I don't know if I've talked about it much on the podcast, but I definitely talk about it in like one-on-one with people. Like support groups are not for everyone. And honestly, in some ways, support groups can sometimes be problematic because if they're not facilitated well, people can just be vomiting all over the room, all of their stuff. And the way that I think about it is that when you're healing, you're like a little garden, right? And what do you do when you plant a new garden? You put a fence around it. You don't let people walk all over your garden. And so in the setting of healing, I teach people about this, like tending to your garden, and the boundaries are putting up this little fence around your garden, and who gets to come in there is very specific about who you're going to let in there so that they don't trample on your garden. But I was talking to this group of women with breast cancer, and they were talking about support groups and some of these dynamics. And I said, it's kind of like this, like you guys are all these little gardens. Each one of you is your own little garden, but then you have like a communal garden that you guys are developing. And you cannot from your garden start spewing all over someone else's garden, right? So we have to have this idea of a safe space, and it needs to be really well managed. And so a lot of times the support groups may not be, beneficial depending on the way that it's done. I love this idea of like, well, what do you want? And how does it feel for you? And then when she's like, I don't want to go, it's like then teaching them how to say, it's okay. Like you don't have to do all the things that everyone thinks someone with cancer should be doing. This is your healing journey. You get to decide. And in fact, that is part of the work of starting to stand up and say, I do know what I need. I want this, so I think that it's so powerful. It's powerful to start to take back your power in this way and saying, I didn't know what I needed. And that's part of why I got sick. And so now my job is to say, I need this. Or I don't need that. And sometimes, and I talk about this a lot, sometimes you don't know what you need, but you know what you don't need. Right. So if that's even it, let's just take away the things that you don't need, but it's like, and I think people get overwhelmed, but it's like, just start with what you do know. Like, what do you not want? If there's things that you don't want, let's start to get rid of those. If there's something, even if it seems silly, that you want, starting to take those actions to step into what is really true for you and what you need.
And again, it's hard for people. And when we feel our emotions, it opens up the heart space, which becomes this internal navigation system for us. And if we would, the more we feel our emotions, the more we're guided by the heart. And again, this is not woo woo. It really is true. We feel good or bad. So you'll go to the support group and say, this feels bad. You honor yourself and you don't go. I remember working with, again, I'm going to speak of Connie, and she was going to get her chemo. However often, I can't remember, it was years ago, but however often you go get chemo, or however often she was getting it. But she said, she goes, it makes me feel so bad when I go and get my chemo and the nurse or the doctor would come up and say, now expect to throw up, all the negative symptoms that you get from the fallout from the chemo. And I said, why don't you let them know that you would not like to hear that again? Not that we're in denial by any means. I said, how does it make you feel to hear that? She says, well, I go home and I start expecting it. And I said, God, we know our thoughts are creative. We know we're energy beings. Like it was so important that we are taking care of ourselves in this way. So she started going in and saying to the doctors and the nurses, like, I'm going to get this chemo. I said, what do you want it to feel like going in? She says, like, I can't remember what she said, but something like this blue healing energy going out. I go, then imagine that and let them know, thank you, but no, I know what to expect. I don't need to hear it again. And it was so empowering for her. And that boundary was the most beautiful thing and changed her, completely changed this journey that she was on. It was beautiful.
Yeah. Well, and this is, I love that you brought this up because this is something. So, and from practicing it, once I started to understand more of this work, I was still practicing in Western radiation oncology. And we have to, by law, give informed consent, right? So we have to say all the bad things that can happen to someone with this treatment so that then they can consent to have it or not, which makes sense, right? But I was always like, oh, I wish I could just like erase that from their mind, like do it and then erase their mind. But what you bring up is a good point, is that like, yes, for the initial, when you sign the consent to do a treatment, your doctor is going to go through all of those side effects and whatever. And so that has to happen as part of this if you're in the traditional system. Once that has happened and you have agreed to treatment, what you just described of like that they'll say, this is what you can expect, and it is absolutely powerful. We know from the placebo effect, people just thinking that they're going to have something, that they will manifest those experiences in their body. And to have a doctor who has the authority and someone who knows, you know, what could happen, to have that planted in your mind is really, really powerful. And for you to give Connie permission to say, it's okay to tell your doctors and your nurses, like if they feel the need that they need to tell someone, you can say, here, tell my loved one who's with me, you know, this, and they'll let me know if it's something that I need to know. But starting to set those, like that we can set boundaries even in places where we think we can't set boundaries, you know? I think that's a really important piece that I want people to hear from this, is that even with your doctors and nurses, you get to say what's going to work for you and what's not going to work for you. And this is a beautiful example of one of those ways that, and also when you set a boundary like that with someone that has perceived power, you feel more powerful, and not in like a, like, you know, egotistical way, but it's like, oh, I do have power. This is my body, and what I'm going to experience, I want to have influence over that. So I thank you for sharing that, because I think that's just like such a beautiful example of ways that people can set healthy boundaries around, you know, even with their care team.
I love that. Oh yeah. I mean, it's a ripple effect, isn't it? Because
it is.
Yeah, I'm speaking a boundary over here, and then I'm speaking a boundary over here, and all of a sudden I'm feeling more empowered, kind of liking having this power. And like you said, it's not having power. It's part of being a human. Like it's a healthy thing to feel empowered and be able to speak up for yourself and set those boundaries. So it ripples through your whole life. It's definitely healthy. No doubt.
I love that. Well, and can I ask you, are there, you know, so you talked about feeling your emotions and motions, you know, like a stream, allowing it to flow.
Yeah.
Do you have any exercises or, you know, tools that you can help? Because I teach, you know, Psych K has been one of the most powerful techniques of teaching a whole brain technique of experiencing your emotions. But I'm wondering if is there something that you teach that is like an actionable tool that people can use with feeling their emotions?
If I may give your audience something that comes to my mind, theadultchair.com/inner child. So it's 2 meditations and journaling prompts to help you to connect with that part of you and start to get the process going of feeling. Okay. Right now in this moment, you can start getting curious about what you are feeling on the inside. And I don't mean you don't need to come up with a word, but when X happened this morning, let's say, or what's going on right now with you, do a body scan. Just check in head to toe, and very slowly with curiosity, you're going to ask yourself, what is this that I'm feeling? What is this? It might be tension in your stomach. It might be tightness in your throat. Be with it. Allow it to be there and just sit with it. You don't have to do anything with it, because what happens is when you put your attention on that, and it's an energy, it'll dissipate. It starts to break apart. So This is what's so cool is when you're feeling your emotions, you're just starting to get back in your body and get in touch with what's flowing through you. And that's what people don't realize. Like, well, I don't know, is it happy? Is it sad? Is this? I'm like, that doesn't matter. Throw those words out. People don't need to define the emotion in the beginning, but do get curious about just, wow, I'm noticing I have a little itty bitty tension in my stomach. Great. Can you close your eyes and just sit with it? Let it be there. And guess what? With your attention, it might expand. Then poof, it might morph or it just goes away and it's gone and it moves through you. You're giving it attention. It's an energy that's just, again, it's sliding through your being and then it's gone and then you feel neutral again. So we've got to get in that habit of like, wow, why am I wanting to eat? Or why am I wanting to sit and watch Netflix all day? Or why am I wanting to do this? Well, pause what you're doing and do a check-in and do a scan head to toe. Like, what am I feeling? Is there something going on inside? Oh yeah, there it is. I feel like my whole chest is feeling really tight right now. Sit with the tightness. Let it be tight. Close your eyes. Feel, and then breathe and it will dissipate. I promise you, I've done this 20 some years with people. It's never not. It will move through you. It can't stay stuck. I've never encountered a stuck emotion ever.
Yeah, well, and also I think one of the things that you're doing in this, and it sounds so simple, people are like, really? Is that easy? But what we naturally do is we resist.
Yep.
Right. And so what we resist persists. But what you're describing there is by allowing it to be there and putting your attention on saying, this is okay. Like we're allowing this to happen. It just starts to dissipate. And that is exactly my experience as well, that the allowing and just being with it is all that's necessary.
Yes.
Like I think people, get afraid that it's going to hijack their whole system or whatever if you tune into it. But it's like, no, when you start to allow those things, that's all your body wants is a way to have the energy flow through it. So that's beautiful. And I'm going to use that because what day? I guess it's been like, today's my third day of no sugar because sugar, I'm definitely addicted to sugar. Sugar is definitely my kryptonite. Like I have such a hard time that if I do just a little bit, then I just want it. Right. And so anyway, I've been, when that kind of craving comes up or whatever, I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to tune into my body and just like see where it is and be with it. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. And I love that you're doing that. A detox for sugar, but soothe yourself. There's a little part inside you. It's like, I gotta eat. It's like, little sweetheart. It's okay. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to have that craving and breathe at the same time.
Yeah.
Right? And the other thing that we do is we go into story about why am I feeling bad? Why do I feel guilt? And we try to figure it out. What I call living chin up. So we step above the chin, we slide up above the chin, we go into the mind mode and we get into that loop of, well, if I can figure out why I'm sad, why I'm mad, why I'm this, then it'll go away. No, that's not how it goes away. We got to drop chin down in the body and we feel, wow, I had an argument with my child, with my partner, with my whomever this morning, with my boss. I'm feeling scared around this or that. Feel it. Allow yourself to feel it. As Jill Bolte Taylor taught us, many, many years ago, is that we have emotions for 90 seconds unless we're stopping them. 90 seconds. We got to let those emotions, it's an energy that's flowing through us unless we're lost in story, trying to figure them out. There's nothing to figure out. Just let it go through you. And it's done.
Yeah. That's so funny. I had totally forgotten that Jill Bolte Taylor said that. That's exactly right. And that is the truth. When you allow it, it's short-lived, but we're just not taught to do that. So This is us relearning how to be with the emotions. So Michelle, I'm sure I'm going to have you back because I love talking to you. I think you and I could just talk and talk. But and we will put that link that you mentioned there for the inner child meditation. So thank you for sharing that. Can you tell people where to find you? And we will make sure that we have all of your links in the show notes.
Yeah, for sure. Everything honestly is at theadultchair.com. That's where you can learn more about the podcast. I have a coaching certification program. I have online courses, but I wanted to offer your audience. So the inner child, theadultchair.com/inner child. It's a free inner child resource. People absolutely love it. People have big clearings around doing these 2 meditations, but I have an online community. It's called the Academy of Awakening. which I'm inviting you into as one of our speakers. And this online community is all around helping people to remember who they truly are and to step into the most authentic version of self. So I would like to offer anyone that would like to try it out for 1 month, just for $1. And you can just put in the code HEAL in honor of your podcast. So it's HEAL all in caps, but that's theacademyofawakening.com. And the promo code is HEAL. And that's $1 for a month. And the month of October, I'm actually doing a big inner child course. So if you want to learn more about emotions and all the things, come on in. But we do a lot of great things in there and have a lot of special guests. And I do a lot of live teachings and Q&As and all the things. So that's that.
I love that. Okay. So we definitely will have that link to that with the coupon code of HEAL in there. And thank you so much for offering that to my audience.
Yeah,
we really appreciate that. And I can't wait to come in and speak in the Academy. So that's exciting. Well, thank you so much, Michelle, for being here with us. And I look forward to the next time that I bring you on.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for joining me on Born to Heal. It's been a privilege to share this time with you, and I hope that today's episode has offered you valuable insights on your journey toward optimal health. Please consider subscribing, sharing this podcast with your friends, and leaving us a review. To learn more about how you can work with me, please visit katiedeming.com. You can find additional resources in the episode show notes linked below, and remember to join us next week as we continue to explore more holistic approaches to healing. Until then, this is Dr. Katie Deming reminding you that just like me, you were born to heal. What if healing cancer didn't have to be so overwhelming and confusing? What if you could access a higher level of consciousness to accelerate healing? And what if you had a clear roadmap to follow, a path to lead you out of the fear and uncertainty? Hi, I'm Dr. Katie Deming. As an oncologist who's cared for thousands of patients, let me guide you safely through the fog. My 6 Pillars of Healing Cancer workshop series is now available, and it's not too late to join. Choose from a range of powerful workshops, each designed to support your healing journey, covering nutrition, emotional well-being, hydration, physical practices, the mind-body connection, and spirituality. Select only the workshops that align with you, or for a limited time, buy the entire bundle and enjoy significant savings. Don't miss this proven holistic roadmap to clarity and deep inner calm to support your healing process. Check the link in this episode's description to learn more and sign up today. Remember, you've got this.